Hi, thank you for tuning into the Short Stacks. I'm Lisa Quintero, Young Adult Librarian.
And I'm Lizzie Jelly, Virtual Engagement Librarian.
This is the show where we talk to you about what we've been reading, listening to, or watching. And today we have a very special guest with us. We have Jacob Bresette from Lake Effect Surf Shop here in Shorewood.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show. So, you opened the shop, 5 years ago or so? A little bit longer?
About 6.5. So It was the summer of 2016. July 23rd, 2016 was the day we opened our doors. And it's gone fast, but it's been amazing so far.
Okay, cool. So how did you get into surfing? Did you start as a skater, or did you start as a surfer, or how did you get into it?
Absolutely. So you're absolutely right. I started skateboarding and snowboarding growing up in Wisconsin, living in the Midwest. Actually, I was my mom lived in Madison and my dad lived up in Wausau.
Okay.
So my dad was pretty close to the ski hill, and we'd go snowboarding, and I'd always skateboard too in the summer, wakeboard. Kind of always had a huge attraction to the board sports. Never really even knew you could surf here on Lake Michigan, until later on in my life in my 20s. So I grew up, as a kid just doing all those board sports. And the story how I actually found surfing was one of my friends had a dad who worked as a shoe rep.
Okay.
So you could go to these expos and get all these stickers and T-shirts and free swag boxes in his basement. And when we go over there, me and my friends would rifle through them, grab a bunch of stickers and stuff. And there was actually a surfing DVD in there. And I ended up grabbing a surfing DVD, and there's a bunch of them. So he's like, here, take one of these. I ended up watching it maybe a year or so later, and remember watching it for the first time being like, I never even thought about this sport, or traveling to these different destinations and riding these different waves and experiencing the cultures too, those places. So it just always really attracted me. And again, not even knowing you could surf here, having that DVD in my teenage years and thinking it could only be done on the coasts. So that's kind of just how I first discovered surfing was that DVD that I got from my friend.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I never really thought about surfing on Lake Michigan or any of the Great Lakes either. I was just like, isn't it too cold here?
No, absolutely. I grew up in Minnesota, close to Lake Superior, and I had no idea that was a thing people did here in the Midwest. I was like, oh, surfing, that's a California thing. That doesn't happen here. But now living in Milwaukee, I see them out there. They're surfing the waves. So what makes surfing the Great Lakes, or Lake Michigan especially, so special? How do you go about it?
Yeah, well, to touch on one thing before I answer that, it's funny when people say they live here and never see surfers or, know about surfing is, we're usually out there when it's cold, windy, rainy, maybe October, November versus June, July. So there are people that live here their whole life that don't even know you can surf the Great Lakes because you're usually not at the beach, during the times we are when we're getting the big waves and stuff like that. So
fair enough.
Yeah. But what I like when you ask what makes it special, and that's one thing I do stress to a lot of people, and it's a lot different, our surf culture here in Wisconsin or even the Midwest or around the entire Great Lakes region than it is on the coast. A lot of the people in these communities are pretty close-knit, so odds are if you do surf, you're going to meet people in that community that surf as well and grow lasting relationships with them. So what I really like is our kind of our Midwest kindness, or that Wisconsin nice shows in our surf community. Okay. You hear about a lot of stuff on the coast, riffraff, people, getting upset or, waxing someone's car, new guy in the town. But, over here, we don't get a lot of that. People are just generally happy to get the waves we do when we have them and celebrate that together. So I always say that's what really makes it special here is our culture and just the vibe that we have as, Midwestern surfers.
So what led you to opening the shop in Shorewood?
Well, it's funny you asked that because I was looking all over when we first decided that we wanted to, build a business here. I'd been surfing the Great Lakes for about 7-8 years at the time, and I was living in Madison, so I was driving every time I wanted to go surfing. It'd be at least an hour drive, and I remember thinking, wow, it'd be really cool if there was a surf shop in Milwaukee. It's the biggest city in the state. A lot of events happen. People come in and out all the time for these cool things going on around town. So I always thought, it'd be a great spot for a surf shop, just being the city it is, kind of the focus they have on the arts and entertainment and counterculture. So it was just always a thought in the back of my head. And believe it or not, at that time I was working at an insurance company.
Very different.
Working 50 hours a week, and I was the surfer guy there. Right? So I'd always come in, some mornings late and wet hair, be driving to Milwaukee and back to surf. So. So what led me to Shorewood was really the beach we have in town here, Atwater. I was actually surfing at Atwater quite often at the time, and thinking Milwaukee would be a great spot. And so when I started looking for locations, we kind of just went to the beach and then started wandering from there and trying to find business districts. And sure enough, where we are now is just a half a mile right down the road from Atwater, and kind of just landed perfectly into our laps with the perfect spot with the kind of smaller right amount of rent. So yeah, we made it happen.
Cool. Yeah. For anybody who doesn't know, the surf shop Lake Effect is on Capitol Drive, just north of the library on Capitol and Murray. So.
Yeah, absolutely. You can almost see the lake from there, really. Like, you're just right next to it.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
Awesome.
And I remember, too, when we were looking for a spot, I came, of course, I was bringing my surfboard just in case.
Yeah.
There were some really little waves this one day when I was scoping out locations. And I actually there's a teacher in town here that's been surfing for a long time, Eric Getson, who's an English teacher at Shorewood High School. And very involved in the local surf community. Actually was the chairman of the Surfrider Foundation Milwaukee chapter for many years here. Started the Surf at Water event with a group of guys and is really, really instrumental in our surf community here. And he's actually a teacher right here in Shorewood. And I remember peering over at Water, and he was the first person I told. I was like, hey, Eric, keep it hush hush, because I don't want anyone, going under me and just doing this. But this is my plan and this is what I want to do. And I remember him saying, you should really look at Shorewood. It's a great community, great schools, great, people that live in the area, and very supportive of local businesses. And obviously Atwater Beach being one of the kind of two main beaches I was surfing at the time, right here. So yeah, I remember him saying too, you should really, look at this area and focus on this area. And I think that was another thing that really helped to kind of push us this direction.
Yeah, so out of curiosity, what do you guys do at the shop? Do you offer classes? I'm guessing you sell, equipment, obviously, but do you offer classes or do you have meetups or things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the summertime, we usually do lessons. Here around January, February, it's a little daunting, trying to learn to surf. When it's this is usually when you bring your A game out when it's this weather. But usually about April or May, we start up group surf lessons again, and we do them even with or without waves. So even if there aren't waves, we'll still bring people out there, show them how to pop up, plane a board, turn a board, do all that stuff we do on the sand. And believe it or not, even if there's just the smallest little ankle slapper wave out there, we'll put them on a big paddle board, give them a push, and it's the perfect environment for them to learn and apply what we've taught in those lessons. Believe it or not, actually, the days there are big waves and heavy surf is the toughest to learn, because people are getting blown everywhere and you're trying to just keep them together. And it's hard to hear people and apply those things you learn when you're just trying to hold on for dear life.
Yeah, that makes sense. And if you're doing it I'm guessing in November, December, January, the water's cold, so you also probably have to learn about safety in terms of hypothermia and all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's why we're so lucky to live in 2023 now. That we do is that we have all this technology at our fingertips with neoprene and being able to put on things that allow you to go in this literally ice cold water. Throughout the year. There's stories of guys, surfing here in the 50s, 60s. I always stress that to people. This isn't something new. People have been doing this for decades. It's just that now it's becoming more popular as social media, things like these podcasts bring it to light. But people were surfing here in the 50s and 60s, and I hear stories from the old timers talking about how they'd use old scuba wetsuits and have to duct tape them.
Oh my gosh!
Just putting 5 wool socks on because there was no booties at the time. So yeah, it's just it's pretty cool to hear that.
Yeah, that's intense. That's commitment.
Yeah, absolutely. Hearing about that kind of extremes that you go to. What's it like surfing in such tough conditions? You've talked about some of the precautions. I'm assuming you're not wearing 6 pairs of wool socks, or maybe you are, I don't know. But are there any special things you have to take note of?
So if you are going to surf in the cold weather, it really is just having a good wetsuit, at least 5 or 6 millimeters thick, with at least 5, 6, 7 millimeters boots and gloves, and a hood as well. So really, once you get all that skin covered, that's the main thing you want to get taken care of in the winter in order to get out there. But there's quite a bit of variables as well. In the winter, we get a lot of ice when it gets cold. And once you get that floating ice out there, it becomes super dangerous. So I always stress to people, if you ever see floating ice in the water, just stay away. A piece the size of a water bottle hits you in the head and it's game over. So in addition to that, too, we'll get a lot of those ice shelves that form as the water splashes on the shoreline, and that shelf can grow and become 15 feet sometimes. So I get a lot of younger surfers that come in and are like, hey, I see a spot I can get in. And I'm like, that's great, but do you see a spot you can get out on both sides, 100 yards down the beach each way? Because truth be told, that current out there, can shift you in a lot of times the spot that you're getting in isn't always the spot that you're getting out. So that ice can make it really difficult. And that's one thing that we really try to be careful of in the wintertime. But what's cool is here in Milwaukee, you don't have to be this hardcore, cold water surfer. There's a lot of people that just come out in the summertime too. It's definitely not as consistent. Usually we're getting maybe 2 or 3 days of surf in the summer versus 1 to 3 days a week in the cool weather months. So there are a lot of people though, especially families that come out and have boards, and we'll go on those occasional days in the summer that we get some surf. So it really is. It's cool. We live in an area where it's literally 100 degrees air temperature difference between our summer and our winter surfing. Yeah. So it's kind of fun to wear that badge.
Yeah. So how do you know if good surf conditions are coming? Like, what do you look for?
So, yeah, another thing that we're lucky to have these days is all our forecasting models. We talked about those guys in the 50s and 60s, and they were using weather radios. Now we're lucky enough to pop on the internet and have dozens of websites that can help you predict, future winds and future surf forecasts. So the one a lot of us kind of go by here mainly is the NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. They have some great tools on their website. We actually link from our website, lakeeffectsurfshop.com, to a couple of their platforms that do some modeling. There's a bunch of them out there too, with Magic Seaweed, Surfline, Windy, Windfinder. So everyone's kind of got their favorites, but we do put a few of them on our website if you ever want to check them out under our Surf Report link.
And yeah, you said you lived in Madison. Like, do the lakes in Madison offer surf? No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I mean, they're smaller, so I was like, I don't know, maybe.
It's funny because I was telling people, like, I was living in Madison. I needed to move closer to the lake. They're like, what are you talking about? It's sandwiched between two lakes. And I'm like, well, this one's significantly larger. So yeah, usually in the inland lakes, you really don't see any surf, even Winnebago, which is huge. The only ones that I've really seen outside of the Great Lakes that get surf are, like Great Salt Lake or Lake Tahoe when they get really heavy gale force winds. But generally speaking, yeah, it's really just the big lakes, the Great Lakes that provide surf around here.
So we're lucky. Cool.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked a little bit about what you look for when you want to look for some good surf, some precautions that you take. So let's say I'm feeling really bold and I want to give surfing Lake Michigan a try. What can I do to get started? What do I need to do to prepare myself?
I always say if you're in the area, to come in the shop. That's why I created this place, was to bring people in, show them how to get into it, break that barrier of entry. So if possible, I always say stop in the shop. And a lot of times I'll even give people my schedule and say, make sure I'm there. So I can really deep dive with you on stuff if you want to go that far. But even calling us, stopping in, or on our website, we actually have some really great links too. We have some videos that we show how to forecast, and some board selection options as well. So obviously contact us if you can. There's some videos out there on YouTube or other resources on the internet as well. But the Great Lakes are so different than what you see on the ocean. So there's a lot of general broad stuff, but I'd like to be able to show people that difference that we have here on the lakes and how to identify those.
So what are some of your favorite surfing related movies or books?
Oh, there's a lot. There's been some really cool stuff lately too, even with like the Bethany Hamilton, Soul Surfer documentary and stuff like that. But one of them I really like, my favorite movie, I would say, if you're going to watch one of them to try to get inspired by surfing, would be Step into Liquid. And it is a documentary style film, but they basically take a glimpse of different surf cultures all throughout the world. And they actually do stop at Sheboygan and talk to some guys that have been surfing there. And, so we actually do, the Great Lakes has a small part in it. But it really is fun to see, people surfing behind tankers in Texas, people surfing the Great Lakes here. And then, of course, your classic, California, Hawaii, Australia, ocean style surfing. Step into Liquid is one I always recommend if people want to watch a surfing movie to, just kind of get a feel for what's all out there. If you're young, if you got some kids at home, Surf's Up.
I love Surf's Up.
I still watch it. I'm 34 years old, and I still watch Surf's Up and enjoy it. It's very clever, so that's always a great one. I actually had a pro surfer who was a legend, Shaun Thompson, that stopped into our shop and has a book he calls The Code. It's basically just some tips on how to live a healthy, happy lifestyle, but also with surfing theme
mixed
to it.
In,
so I gotta throw that out there for Shaun, The Code. If you're looking for some just good inspiring stuff. Barbarian Days, that's a really popular book that a lot of people outside of the the surf culture, read and enjoy. So if you're looking for a good read, that's another great book too.
Cool. Yeah, I get a sense that it's similar to like skateboarding culture in some of the ways that different groups do things and like the competitions and things like that. And are there any competitions that happen in the Great Lakes or no?
There actually was just one that happened this fall. There hadn't been anything for decades. And then, a guy up in, I believe it's kind of near Sleeping Bear Dunes and up in the Grand Traverse City, I believe, area, had just put one on, so it's in what would be northern Michigan this fall. And a few of my friends from Milwaukee went over there as well. And then a bunch of guys turn out for it. So, and ladies as well. Okay, cool. So it's been, it's kind of cool to see that just starting to come. And I believe it's called the North Lighthouse Classic.
Have you ever thought about hosting one or?
It has, we do the Surf at Water that we've done here, which is more to kind of help kids and help families get into it. But it's always kind of crossed my mind to do something along those lines.
Someday.
So, stay tuned.
So what do you guys have coming up at the shop?
Well, actually, one thing I'm really excited on right now, it's winter and it's usually a little slower after the holidays and, not quite into the busy season of the spring break or the summer. So, I don't know if I should be announcing this or not, but we're actually doing some in-store concert series.
Cool.
So we're having bands, including touring bands, coming in and actually trying to do it the right way, getting a really good video crew. My friend owns a production company called the Visionary Studios here in Milwaukee, and they do a lot of work for different places and really great work. So they've offered to, set up their cameras and film the bands while a local radio station comes in and plugs in and records it. And it hasn't been released yet, but we're hoping in February or March the series will be released on the radio. And then we're going to put all those videos online and YouTube and kind of like a Tiny Desk show. I don't know if you guys hear Tiny Desk. Yeah, it's similar to that, but in our surf shop. So it's going to be called Live at Lake Effect. And just kind of one thing I'm like, what else can we use the shop for other than just selling surfboards and stuff.
Yeah. Do you sell any other type of like board equipment besides surfing stuff? Like
absolutely. A lot of skateboards, longboards. We did paddle boards, but we've kind of stopped that and just switched the focus to just surfing. A lot of surfboards, skateboards, tons of clothing. We do a lot of our, private label with Surf Wisconsin.
Cool.
Aloha, Wisconsin Aloha.
Yeah, I gotta have the local pride. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. So we do have some great gift stuff if people are ever looking for, something fun for a surfer they're buying a gift for.
Cool. Anything else you want to add?
No, I just want to, I always mention, I love doing business in Milwaukee. Growing up in Madison, I never thought I would live in Milwaukee or move here. And it's weird to say, after moving here, I've never felt like I was home until I did move here. So it really is a great city. Even doing stuff with you guys here and the podcast. So I'll just say that, even if you're hearing this from somewhere out of town, it's a great spot to visit. Great people and culture and tons of stuff to do. So we could be happier to be doing business where we are and with the community here that supports us. So.
Very cool. Yeah, so if you're in the area, you should check out the Lake Effect Surf Shop over on Capitol Drive. What's the actual address?
1926 East Capitol.
There we go.
Or just come to the library. And it's literally kitty corner from here. So you'll find us if you come here.
Yeah, go check it out. Talk to Jacob, learn a little bit about surfing. Maybe get out on the waves sometime. I mean, I love swimming Lake Michigan and the idea of going on a surf. Pretty cool, yeah.
It does sound pretty
I think
cool.
about it, just in the summer, sometimes the waves get pretty intense. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, we rent gear too, so anytime you ladies want to get up, feel free to.
All right, Lisa, let's go.
All
right. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Jacob.
Thanks again for having me.
As always, if you have any questions or comments for your host, you can email us at shorewoodstacks@gmail.com. You can find us on Podbean, Spotify, or iTunes. Until next time, thanks for listening and be well. The Shorewood Stacks is produced by Lisa Quintero and Lizzie Jelly for the Shorewood Public Library. Music for the show is by Kevin MacLeod. The song is called Ice Flow and can be found on incompetech.com.